What's happening? Welcome to Throwin Stones alongside Ryan Griffin. I'm Matt Basson, and if you don't know by now, you should know we're talking hoops and not just our beloved Pistons. Before we get rolling, though, got to remind you, like, subscribe everywhere you can find us. That would be TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, full episodes on YouTube. All right, let's get rolling, Ryan. We're going to start with our Stones. Pistons. Last night, we recorded on Wednesday. Recorded on Thursday. Last night, Wednesday's game, Pistons routing the Atlanta Hawks. My man, Jerami Grant, leading the way with 21 points. Cade, 17, 6, and 8. Another respectable line for the rookie trying to climb his way to Rookie of the Year. And 6 other Pistons, Ryan, had between 10 and 16 points. A balanced attack for our Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really care about Cade is that he's getting that 17, 5, and 5 to bring up those benchmarks to join whatever that list was with Magic Jordan and Magic Johnson and like Oscar Robertson. I think the best part
Luka.
about Luka too. The most encouraging part about this game for me was the play of Killian Hayes, and he's been playing a little bit better recently. But I think he had 13 points, 6 boards, and 5 assists or something. He played really well, controlled the game. He even posterized somebody. So for Killian to kind of be turning that corner, it's the second time in like a month that he's put the clamps down on Trae Young. I know Trae shot 50%, but he only had 18 shot attempts and scored 21 points and had like 9 assists. So if you're going to play the Hawks and you're telling me Trae's only getting you 21 points, 9 assists, I'll take that all day, every day. And I mean, it just goes to show you, like, the price on Hayes Island, the real estate, is going up. Yeah, I'm the mayor. I'm not letting just anybody on. You're gonna have to prove to me that you were down from the beginning. But I was really encouraged by Killian's play. Jerami played good. Sadiq didn't play all that well, and Cade had another strong performance. But I'm really encouraged by Killian's play, because I think that's going to be a guy who can be like a key cog of the future of the Pistons, obviously along with Cade Cunningham, if things start to break right for him, and I hope they do.
Yeah, I mean, Beef Stew also, they put Beef Stew on Trae Young, and he was playing defense on the young guard. So, I mean, you got your center out there staying with them as well. Love that. You know us Pistons. We love our defense, and we love when the team plays great defense. And, to take down a playoff bound, because they're the 10 seed. They're in that play-in playoff tournament. But to romp them 122 to 101 for the Pistons' largest victory and dominating them in every facet. They shot better from 2. They shot better from 3. They shot better from the free throw line. They out-rebounded them. They had more assists than Atlanta. And to go along with that, history being made, Sadiq Bey is now the all-time single-season three-point maker for the Detroit Pistons, breaking Allen Houston's 27-year-old record. So while he might not have played all that great, he made history the other night as well. So great game all around for our Pistons. Biggest victory of the year for them. 8 guys in double digits. It's just a well-balanced, well-rounded win and a dominant win over a playoff-bound team.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I like about this game is the Pistons were down after the first quarter. They were down by 5, and they still won the game by 20. And if you just look at like the scoring by quarter, the Pistons demolished the Hawks, the second, third, and fourth quarter, which a lot of the times this year has kind of been a killer for them, coming out of the half flat and just getting destroyed or outscored by 15 in the third quarter or something. And at least for a night, that didn't happen. And right, like you said, the Hawks, a playoff bound team, probably a team that was in the Eastern Conference, finals last year. So, or Eastern Conference semifinals, maybe
semifinals for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Pistons also look better NBA teams. You expect to do this, but for a bad team like the Pistons, you hope they can do it, and they did. They took advantage of the Hawks on the back end of a back-to-back night for the Hawks. So the Hawks came in with heavy legs. You saw it after the first quarter, but bad teams can still lose to decent teams when they're on the back-to-back end of a back-to-back night. So to go out and do that and do it dominantly, like you said, every quarter got better. The third quarter started off great for the Pistons, and they just kept them at arm's length the rest of the way. And Cade doing what Cade does, still pushing for that Rookie of the Year, putting up all-star numbers since the All-Star break, 22, 7, and 7. Look, You want that from anyone on your team, but you getting it from the rookie. Come on.
22-7-7 is like outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know in the inflated numbers era of the NBA, we've kind of been desensitized to it because we have guys, like Luka and even like Trae who are pushing like 30 and 10 numbers, but 22-7-7
for a rookie.
For a rookie. And if you think, I know it's 5 more points, but like LeBron's career average is 27-7-7, and he's regarded as the most well-rounded player of all time. And for Cade, in this stretch since the All-Star break to be at 22-7-7, not right up there with LeBron's career's numbers because the scoring's got to be a little bit higher. But I have no doubt that Cade can add on to that average, or even average 25 points a game next season, or 24. Maybe the Pistons get a little bit better and he doesn't have to score as much. But it's just it's really incredible to see what he's been able to do. And he's gotten cosigns not only from Pistons fans who all love him, but he's gotten cosigns from other stars. I know Kevin Durant was a big fan of Cade's game. Somebody else the other night was talking about, just like how Chauncey Billups, great Piston point guard, was talking about how great, Cade Cunningham, just like maturity and poise and control of the game is for a rookie. And it's really exciting because it feels like the Pistons haven't had a guy like that in so long, right? Probably not even since Chauncey Billups, but I think fans feel better about Cade than they even ever did about Chauncey, which is crazy considering he's a Finals MVP here.
It's a little different, Chauncey came here eventually. I'm thinking back to like who the Pistons have drafted that given
Grant
up.
Hill.
It's Grant Hill. It is. It's absolutely Grant Hill. There's no one since Grant Hill that the Pistons have been this high on as a rookie, and to come out and produce consistently, because that's what he's been doing since the All-Star break, especially really since he got healthy. The first 2 months of the NBA season, he missed a bunch of it to start, and then the rest was getting into game shape and game speed and everything. You take out that first 2 months, Cade's been fantastic, and that's all you could ask for your rookie. If he wins Rookie of the Year or not, we got 2 weeks left in the season to find out if he's going to get it done. But someone knows that 2 weeks are only left in the season, and that's Jerami Grant, who's been playing up all of a sudden, trying to get that resume bolstered, because there's already talks about where he's going to go next year, because it's probably not going to be in Detroit. And they're already talking about apparently Portland very interested in Jerami Grant, using what is the New Orleans Pelicans pick that they got in the trade for CJ McCollum, to try and lure him to his Olympic teammate, Damian Lillard.
Yeah, so the pick has to fall between 5 and 14. And right now, at least that's where it's projected to fall, right? The Blazers could get the Pelicans could get some unreal lottery luck and be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the pick, just kind of jumps into next year. But that's what we're talking about. We don't even care what player we would get back, and you'd have to get a player to match the salary. We don't even care what player we get back. The Pistons can walk into this draft with 2 top 6 picks, right? 2 top 8 picks. It changes the whole dynamic of the future, because this is a pretty deep draft up top. Like, there are 4 guys who, probably 3 you can see going number 1, but 4 who are in like that super upper tier. But then the tier right below that, that's not that's nothing to shake at either. That's where you have like your guy, was it Mathurin?
Yeah,
is that his last name? You got guys like Keegan Murray, Johnny Davis, some of these Big Ten guys that we're familiar with, AJ Griffin from Duke. So there's a lot of options. Jalen Duren from Memphis. There's a lot of guys that the Pistons, if they're able to pull out that trade and get that pick from Portland, the second one, the Pelicans pick from Portland, it's like it'd be an absolute game changer. And there's some smoke behind the fire. Like when they played the Blazers the other night, Jeremy was talking, I think it was with Josh Hart and like Yusuf Nurkic. And Josh Hart had like that tweet from whatever it was, Legion Hoops, that, kind of mentioned that Shams report that said, hey, the Blazers are very interested in pursuing Jerami Grant. They're really trying to attack it. And when you have some kind of openness like that from the players, I think it helps, get a deal done.
Yeah. And it certainly helps that him and Dame Lillard kind of worked on their chemistry, while both being on the Olympic team. I think that did a ton for Jerami Grant in general. And but for his future, Now, you've already got a guy advocating for you to come here. He knows how to play with them, got some time playing with them, enjoyed his company. So it's all the better for Jerami Grant. Look, I'm a big fan of Jerami Grant. I've enjoyed his time on the Pistons. I would be a little upset to see him leave, but if we are going to get a top 10 pick in the NBA draft for him, I'm all for it. You give us 2 top 10 picks altogether between our own and theirs, you're talking about really speeding up the rebuild of the Detroit Pistons. So I'm absolutely all for it.
I know, and this is why I wasn't so upset like at the trade deadline when Jerami Grant was still on the team, because I knew the draft season's coming, right? You have the off season to still get rid of this guy, or even when you knew kind of maybe more so how the draft was going to play out. And I think as long as you can get maximum value for Jerami Grant, that's all you can ask. And I trust Troy Weaver enough, at least, to think that if he wasn't getting that value at the trade deadline, I was fine keeping him, because I knew at some point you're going to be able to max out Jerami. And if he continues this play down the stretch, I mean, hey, sky's the limit. Those offers are only going to keep going up. If Portland is really interested, who's to say somebody else doesn't come in just a little bit more desperate?
We going to find out. All right, big news for big men in the big news. Kevin Durant coming out and defending one of the best big men of all time in Dirk Nowitzki, because Karl Anthony Towns is having himself a year. Man's been shooting the ball beautifully, won the 3-point contest this year, which, I think he was one of the worst odds for it if you went to Vegas betting on the All-Star break. But he's been putting up, ridiculous numbers, 25 points a game, 53% from the field, 41% from 3, while averaging 5 threes a game, 5 attempts, not 5 makes. And people are already starting to say, is he the best big of all time? Well, Kevin Durant came out and said,
the best big shooter of all time.
Yes, best big man shooter of all time. So, and KD coming out and saying, hold up, slow your roll.
Yeah, and so KD was obviously advocating for Dirk Nowitzki, right? It's not like he was just trying to poo-poo on Towns all of a sudden. But he was advocating for Dirk, and I mean, Dirk's certainly right there. Before Cat came along, I don't even think this was a discussion. Everyone was just like, oh yeah, Dirk, the best shooting big, right? He came in, he kind of revolutionized the game. A 7-footer doing that before 7-footers could. I thought, I'll be totally honest with you, I thought I was gonna give the edge to Cat when we first started the podcast and we were going over our show notes. I'm looking at some of the other numbers now. Dirk still career 38% from 3. Cat just about 40. It's not that big of a gap, right? Because sometimes you get these older guys, Larry Bird, older than Dirk Nowitzki, but he's probably 35, 36% from 3. And today, that's just something you look at and be like, right?
It's about average.
But for Dirk to still be at 38%, the way he did it, taking more, like his shots were more difficult than Towns. He played in more big games than Towns, so there was some way more pressure on Dirk Nowitzki's, shots and just his performance in general than there is for Karl Anthony Towns, and more pressure. I think he had to shoulder a bigger load than Dallas than Towns does in Minnesota. And even free throw percentage, right? Dirk's still 88% from 3. Towns for his career, from the free throw line, Towns is 83 and a half, 83 basically. So I think I would give the edge to Dirk, although I was 1000% ready to say no, like Cat's that dude. I knew Dirk was that dude. I didn't know that percentages were that good though.
Well, so I mean, it's funny when you say careers, because unfortunately your first year and your last year are usually not that great in the NBA. And sometimes, depending on how long you played, Dirk played 21 seasons. The last couple years are not that great. So when we crunch the numbers, we did 2 different sets. The full career one, 20 point per game scorer for his career. If you take away that first year and really his last 3 years, because he was just kind of, he didn't play as well. He's getting older, 40 years old and all that. 22 points per game for 17 years of his 21-year career, while shooting around 40% from three, close to it, 38 to 40, depending on what year you looked at, 38 to 41, depending on which years you're looking at. So to do it for that long is where it's like, look, Karl Anthony Towns, his numbers are impressive. And anytime you have a big that's shooting 80% plus from the free throw line, that's a good big, because you look at the greatest bigs of all time. Wilt was like 50%. Shaq is like 50%. Then you have the outliers. Kareem was like 78, 81%. And that's what people always said was the difference between Kareem and these other centers was if he got fouled in crunch time, he's making his free throws. So when you have a big that makes free throws, it does make a big difference. But for Dirk to do it for 20 years, and Cat is still in year, what, 7? 6, 7?
Yeah.
So you got to keep it going. And if he continues to do this, he's going to continue to add to the argument that he might very well end up being the best shooting big man of all time. But he's had a great start so far. He's dealt through a whole lot of hate throughout his career, a lot of talk about his toughness, that famous picture of him and Boogie, which is still one of my favorite pictures of all time. Boogie's just standing there and Cat's doing everything he can to try and hit him, and he ain't even moving. But the man can put up points, lots of points, and he does it in different ways. And, came out this year, All-Star break, said, I'm going to, and goes and wins the 3-point contest. No one was expecting that. Kind of, reminded everyone how good he can be. And in this era where it's all about shooting from deep, he's fitting in beautifully and standing out at it.
Yeah. I mean, this year in the NBA, he's one of just the best shooters in the NBA, big or not. Like he's one of the best shooters. I used to have 41% on just about, what is it here, 5 attempts a game. 2 years ago, he actually shot better percentage on 8 3-point attempts a game. So I mean, this is a man who can absolutely, set the net on fire from beyond the arc. But I think Dirk's just in a different level because of the ways he was doing it. I do think the pressure of carrying a team that actually had expectations does matter. I know Minnesota's having a nice year this year, but it's like a nice year for Minnesota. If Dirk was ever the 6th seed or whatever Minnesota figures to be, it's like, that's a disappointing year. But Dirk was carrying title expectations, right? Even before they won it in 11. In 07, he was the MVP. They got upset in the first round by the We Warriors.
Believe.
But it was still constantly, 50-win teams who people thought could make a deep run in the playoffs. And here's just kind of a fun note. Doesn't really have anything to do with Dirk, but like what you said about the first year and like the last couple years can really bring you down. There's a list of, I think, like 3 or 4 players who have ever averaged 27 points a game for their career. And Iverson would be on that list, except his last couple years in like Memphis and his last run in Philly, like that brought him down to where I think he's like 26.8 or 26.9 or something like that. And it makes me sad because that's my favorite player.
Yeah, it's just not fair. You shouldn't count those years where the guys a shell of themselves. You should show the numbers for when they were a baller. I understand having them displayed so everyone can see them, but when you're talking like his real career, like there should be like a little like outlier asterisk something saying, here's his real career. Like we ain't going to count that first year. Like for Kobe, like you can't count Kobe's first year. The man only played half the games. He wasn't needed. They were trying to bring him in slower. He wasn't like LeBron as a rookie where he's starting for the Cavs because they need him. Like it's just there's different asterisks that need to be thrown into these guys' careers to make them show their real numbers.
Yeah, and that's probably a different segment for a different podcast.
Oh yeah, we should definitely make that.
You need to talk about the peaks of these guys because you're right, not everybody has the same career path. So these stats that LeBron's putting up, incredible longevity, but I think if Luka plays as long, he could very well be there because he's got some more inflated numbers than LeBron has, and he was the man, like since day one as well. So it'd just be interesting to see, like as the years progress, how wonky some of these numbers are, and like how weird some of these guys are who like maybe pass Kobe or they pass Iverson in some sort of statistic, and you're just like, well, that's not right.
Right. You talk about not right, and look. Pistons fan, Laker fan. There is no team I hate more than the Boston Celtics. I grew up, a young kid in the 80s, hated this team more than anything. And this ain't right. But this team is hot as can be right now. And I hate every minute of it. But this team was 23-24 on January 21st, Ryan. They are 23-4 since. This team making its way up the charts in the Eastern Conference. looks like they might have the best starting five in basketball right now between Tatum, Brown, Robert Williams, Smart, and Horford. Looks like Smart has really found his spot in this team because this is a guy who is, even in Boston, there was, you love the effort, you love the defense, but this man would shoot you out of games in the past. And this year, being really the starting point guard for them, averaging about 6 assists, came off a game last night where they dominated the Utah Jazz, and he dished out 13 assists in the process. This team, don't be sleeping on the Boston Celtics, Ryan, because they might be the team that represents the East when it's all said and done.
They absolutely could be. It's because they have kind of that old school mentality of team building, right? Where if we lose in the playoffs, we're not going to go out and swing a big trade and bring in Kevin Love or something along those lines. Like Tatum, Brown, and Smart, they've probably been together like at least 5 years now. Like these are guys who grew up together. They all started their careers on the Celtics. They grew up. They were rookies together. They went through those bumps. They went through some highs. They got to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals and, lost to LeBron James and Cleveland. And their team has played together a lot. And Tatum's emerging to be really one of the best players in the NBA. He's probably been like a top 10 player this year, right behind Kyle Kuzma. Jaylen Brown is the perfect number 2 and the perfect complement to what Jason Tatum does. And then Marcus Smart does everything else that those guys don't want to do, except I don't even know if it's that they don't necessarily want to do it, because Tatum and Brown, they can both defend. They can both get a little bit, I don't want to say dirty, but they can get, down. They can dive for the loose balls. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be a little bit of a shame. And I don't want to, I think Ito Adukwe is, I don't know how to pronounce the coach's name. I'm sorry. Coach has done a fantastic job, but I think it's a trickle down effect from when Brad Stevens was coaching these guys, because it should essentially be right, like the same team, the same offense. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe they just finally emerged and they see an opportunity. There's a lot of good teams in the East, but Boston is clearly the team that's been together for the longest, and they should have the strongest team chemistry. And they're not just beating teams, they are straight up annihilating them.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about their last so many wins against the Kings, the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Jazz. Average margin of victory, 21.5 points, and it still wasn't even that close in a lot of these games. And, right. What you said is very true about how long this team has been together. And for a lot of this time that they've been together, there's been the question of, can Brown and Tatum play together? And you got to get rid of one of these guys. You can't have these two stars. It's not working, blah, blah, blah. Good thing they didn't, because it's working real well right now, and they are rolling through. They're making their way up. They're one loss back of the 2 and 3 spots for the Sixers and the Bucks. They're only 2 back from the Miami Heat, and they got a matchup remaining. So, and they also have 1 game left with the Bucks. So if they win that game, they got a tiebreaker over them. And I mean, this team is playing with efficiency. They're playing with smarts. They're playing with defense, and they have the best point differential in the East on their way to climbing up this ladder.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the Celtics getting what was I just about to say? Shit.
No, we've been there.
Yeah. Imagine. Okay, here's what I was about to say. So even if the Celtics lose in, say, the second round, right? They get a matchup with the Nets or Philly, whoever, and it's a tough series. You're going to start to hear Brown and Tatum, one of them got to go again. No, the hell they don't. You keep these two together, and you let the rest figure it out. Because with these two, you're always at least going to be a factor in the Eastern Conference. You might not ever be the favorite if another team has Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and, maybe Ben Simmons to be determined, right? Or Joel Embiid and James Harden. But you got to keep these guys together. I think it'd be a huge mistake for the Celtics to move on from either one of these guys, regardless of what happens in the playoffs this year, because these two guys are always going to give you a chance. And if you just surround them with the proper talent, then I think they absolutely could represent the East and, could even win a championship in the right year if things break right.
Yeah. I mean, and look, we say in the right year, it might be this year. The Suns are dominating out in the West, but it's not a guarantee they're going to even represent the West or let alone win the NBA championship. The Heat right now, number 1 in the East, but it's a slim lead. And, we'll talk later about the Heat kind of having some internal turmoil and crumbling a little bit. The Celtics been hot. Like we said, 23-4 since near the end of January. The best by far in the NBA at that time. And this could end up being the year. I hope not. I don't want to see them raise another banner. I don't want them having one more than the Lakers again. We just tied them finally. That bubble one might not count for some people, kind of including myself, but it's up there. It's in the rafters, so you got to kind of count it.
Absolutely. Everything.
Speaking of the Celtics, a little bad memory for them. On this date that we're recording, be March 24th, but in 2017, on this date, Devin Booker announced himself to the NBA by dropping a 70-piece in TD Garden in Boston to help his Suns, who were not a good team at that time, defeat the Celtics 130-120. A 70-piece, and the youngest by far to do it. And he puts his name up there, Ryan, with a bunch of legends when it comes to putting 70 points up in a game in NBA history.
They lost that game, though, didn't they?
Or did they lose that game? Sorry, maybe it was the Celtics won that game 130-120.
Yeah, the Celtics won because the Celtics were all salty after because the Suns were feeding.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the Suns were like force feeding Devin Booker. To me, this was a vindication because I guess I'm just going to toot my own horn for a minute. I love Devin Booker coming out of Kentucky. He's who I wanted the Pistons to take instead of Stanley Johnson. We know how that worked out. But like I loved every minute of it. Oh, did they take KCP in front of
Where did Stanley Johnson play?
There you go. Maybe that's why they took him. They knew it was 6 years later. No, whatever. Stanley Johnson, KCP, both bad picks. I wanted Devin Booker over whatever one of them was coming out. But announced himself to the NBA, 70 points. It really like an insane game. And I was looking at the stats the other day, 24 or 26 from the free throw line. That is preposterous. Preposterous efficiency for shooting that many free throws. 21 of 40 overall. So it's not like 50%. Right. No, it's not like he was taking 65 shots to get to the 70 points. And it's something that I wasn't sure like how often we've seen it. Obviously, we haven't seen it since. Nobody's really come close. I think there's been like a 63 or 62 point game, but nobody's been at 68 or 69 or like been on the precipice, even in these now 5 years since that performance. With the inflated numbers, with all the 3-pointers, with all the ways guys know how to cheat the refs and get to the free throw line, like you kind of thought it would have been closer by now. It just goes to show you how difficult of a feat 70 points really is.
A lot of points. And there's a reason this list was small. You're talking about Booker joining the likes of Wilt, Elgin Baylor, David Thompson, David Robinson, Kobe Bryant, obviously with the 81. You want to talk about forcing up points. David Robinson. David Robinson. For those that don't know, him and Shaq were battling for the scoring leader for that year. And Shaq was winning after the last game of the season, and the Spurs went into their final game, and they did everything to make sure that David Robinson got every point he needed, because I think Shaq put up like 54 or something in his final game to really take that lead, and David Robinson needed about 70 to get it, and he ended up winning that by like 0.1 points. It was absolutely ridiculous, about force feeding way more than what the Celtics witnessed with Devin Booker on a bad team. David Robinson doing this for the Spurs on a semi-decent team at the time. But, I mean, to have your name etched in history with everyone else on that list and to be the youngest to do it, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, I mean...
I know. I kind of hope we get a repeat of the David Robinson Shaq year this year, because this year's scoring title, I think it's LeBron, Giannis, and Embiid.
Yeah.
I hope to God one of them just on the last day is like, I'm dropping 65 just to make sure I have it. And I hope the NBA can flex those games and space them out so that we get, okay, LeBron did it. Now he's at, well, LeBron will probably be last, right? But Embiid did it. Now he's at, now Giannis needs 30.1. Right? Now Giannis needs 35 to beat him, and then Giannis goes out and smacks 50, and then it's like, oh, LeBron in the primetime game. Now LeBron needs 64. Like, I hope we get that scenario this year because I do think the scoring title matters to guys, and it's fun to go out and see the best players, even if they're passive, like LeBron is to an extent, right? Trying to get his teammates involved. It's fun to see the best players go out there and just decide, no, like I'm getting buckets. You guys move out the way. This game is all on me.
I mean, it'd be fantastic entertainment for the last game of the season, and might even very well impact the MVP race as well. An MVP race that the man we were just talking about is being very much ignored in. Ryan, tell me, this is the leading scorer on the best team in basketball. How is he not even mentioned? Look, I'm not saying Devin Booker should win MVP this year, but there are criteria, and Isaiah Thomas, the great Isaiah Thomas of Detroit legend fame, NBA legend fame, came out and pointed that out, that when you are the number one scoring option, the leading scorer on the best team in basketball, your name is usually mentioned in MVP discussions. And all we are hearing is Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis. That's it. Those are the three names I'm hearing when it comes to MVP. Well, meanwhile, Devin Booker out here dropping 26, 5-5, increased it to 28, 5-7 after CP3 went down. Everyone was worried about how the Suns were going to do once CP3 went down right before the All-Star break. Well, the Suns have gone 11-4 so far without CP3, held on to their lead in the first, is the reason behind it.
I love Devin Booker. I just profess my love for Devin Booker. Now I feel like I don't want to sit here and just hate on the man, but there's a reason that he's not in the MVP discussion because it really shouldn't be. It's all the crowded field now. I understand what Isaiah Thomas is saying. Best player, best team, leading scorer usually gets that. Isaiah, the game changed. The advanced stats nerds, they came in and they just turned over. There's a whole MVP discussion, which is why you have guys like Jokic, like Embiid, and like Giannis who are on the MVP ballot. And I think rightfully so. I think these guys probably have the biggest impacts on their team just in general. I mean, especially you look at what Jokic is doing without Michael Porter Jr., without Jamal Murray, still keeping the Nuggets in the thick of things, and the numbers that he's putting up. And it's kind of a little bit of that too, right? It's the numbers, like 26, 5-5. We just talked about it with Cade, 22, 7-7. Those don't seem so far off. And not that they're not good, but if you looked at those numbers in like the 80s or early 90s when Isaiah Thomas was playing, they look way better than they do now when you have guys putting up 30, 10, and 7. And I think even probably Luka will get some more MVP love than Devin Booker will with the way he's been performing this year. And you mentioned criteria. It seemed like there used to be a certain fit criteria, and now it's just all over the place. It's like the guy the media says is going to be the MVP 20 games into the season has the upper hand up until game 65. And then people start saying, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And it just seems like that's the way that not only the discussion goes, it sort of seems like that's the way that it's voted on as well.
I'm telling you right now, if Joker wins MVP with the 6th seed in the West, because that's what his team is right now, I ain't watching the NBA for at least a day or two, because that was the entire argument against 2 of Kobe Bryant's MVPs that were stolen from him, was that, oh, well, he's on the 6th team in the West or the 7th team in the West. You can't give it to a guy who's not in the top 4 of his conference. I don't care how well he's playing. I don't want to hear it. It ain't fair. It's an absolute crap rule. Look, again, not saying Booker should win it this year, but I think being the best player, leading scorer on the best team at least gets you into the conversation. Because look, what Embiid is doing is ridiculous. Basically 30 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. The Sixers are 2 in the East. Giannis, basically 30 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. The Bucks are 3rd in the East, same record as the Sixers. And then Joker, 26 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, almost a triple-double with the 6th seed Denver Nuggets in the West. Their numbers are ridiculous, and you're not going to get those kind of numbers from Booker because Booker's not going to rebound like that. All 3 of the guys I just said are 7-footers, so you're not going to get the same kind of rebounding numbers, but it's commendable what Booker has done, and I think at least he should get some mention in the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be tough. I don't even know that he's gonna make an All NBA team. Like, there's so many good guards. Like, I don't know what you want. Sorry, Devin. Just if you win a championship, I'm sure that'll be enough for you. And yeah, that's kind of it. He's gonna probably have to prove it in the playoffs first to even be mentioned, I would guess.
Well, if I was Devin Booker, I'd be fighting people. Anyone that besmirches my name, I'd be fighting people like I was Jimmy Butler about to fight my own damn coach and teammates.
He is from Saginaw, so it's it's possible. That's right.
All right. So, Ryan, let's set the stage here before we close out the show. The Warriors are in town to play the Miami Heat. The score is tied at 50 at halftime. And then the Dubs come out in the third. They lock down Miami. Wiggins and Poole go to work. And suddenly 50-50 at the half is 63-50 after Poole hits a ridiculous three-pointer basically in front of the Miami bench. Spo calls a timeout. And then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it sounds like Jimmy Butler challenged Eric Spoelstra to a fight. Because there's one of those videos out there where Spo is saying, like, well, what are you going to do? Like, effing fight me? No? Or what do you want me to do? Effing fight you? Something along those lines. And then you have Udonis Haslem, 30-year NBA vet. It seems like it's all for the Miami Heat, backing up his coach, I guess, which he should, because Eric Spoelstra is probably not any bigger than 5'6", I would guess. And here you have Jimmy Butler barking down on him, and Udonis Haslem tells Jimmy Butler straight up 4 times, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to beat your ass. And, we know Jimmy is prone to these teammate explosions, right? There's the famous practice of him in Minnesota going at Towns, going at Wiggins, saying, oh, you guys can't win without me, and beating them with the third stringers on the team. And I think he has some real issues with Brett Brown when he was in Philly as well. So this is a guy that, controversy, or even at least you can maybe say he has a short fuse, or he's tough to work with. It seems to follow him. It seems like he's fitting best with the Heat so far, but I think this was just bound to happen.
This was just comedy. The way it extended and kept going, all the different little things, as soon as it really starts getting heated, Kyle Lowry's like, yeah, I'm just going to out. And then it continues when they get up and the players are coming onto the field, and Spo actually bends down to pick up the clipboard, which was in his hands at one point and is now on the ground, just to slam it on the ground again on the floor in front of Jimmy Butler, gets back onto the floor to confront Jimmy Butler. Meanwhile, the Warriors are coming onto the floor. Moses Moody is all of a sudden in the middle of this like, what is There's just so much comedy in this video. And yeah, it's exactly, it's Jimmy Butler. It's what he does. He's got that chip on his shoulder. He's got that dog in him. He's got that fire. And, he was not happy. I still want to find out what he said to Spo in the first place, because I don't know why you're mad at your head coach when your offense is not working. The Dubs are locking you down, and the Dubs are getting what they want. I don't know how that's Spo's fault. You were the one on the floor.
Yeah, apparently he challenged him to a fight, right? at the bewilderment of Eric Spoelstra.
And you damn right that Haslam's going to come to Spo's defense, because Spo is the only reason that Haslem has been on the Heat the last 5 years.
So Haslam's basically an assistant coach at this point.
Exactly.
But this isn't some run-of-the-mill going to be out of a job in 2 years coach. This is Eric Spoelstra, the second longest tenured coach in the NBA. And, a guy who's coached LeBron James. He's coached Dwayne Wade. He's coached some difficult, personalities in his career. And he's earned that respect to really not be spoken to in that way by his players.
And you're also the 1 seed in the East at this point. It's not like you're having a down year.
And I guess that would be, if you're trying to find any sort of seriousness in this levity, that would be the question, right? Is this something that could break the Heat, or after this, could you see the Heat winning, an NBA championship? Just knowing that this happened, knowing some of Jimmy Butler's history. Granted, it is a team that went to the finals in that bubble year, but is it a team that you could see winning, seeing that they don't seem to be at least the most close-knit group?
Yeah, well, we got 2 weeks left in the regular season. We'll find out if this comedy of errors leads to a run for the Miami Heat, because they have been kind of slumping a little bit, and that could have absolutely played a factor. All right, that's it for tonight. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Don't forget, like, subscribe wherever you can find us. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, full episodes on YouTube. He's Ryan Griffin. I'm Matt Basson. We're Throwin Stones. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We'll see y'all again real soon.
Yep, you're on your phone all day at work anyway. You might as well be subscribed to us.
You heard the man.